Wow, what a beautiful day it is here in the southwest of England. But come on a trip with me. We're going to go to Wales. We're going to do some book buying.
Selfies take this one of the great inventions.
Right, so here we are again in Hay-On-Wye, and it's a beautiful day. It's a Wednesday. Last time I came was a Thursday. That was market day and it was crowded and noisy. So today's a Wednesday. We're going to avoid Thursdays from now on. We're going to have a walk around. I'm going to sell some books and I'm going to buy some books. First of all, a bit of selling, and I've brought some things over because the hideout's getting rather full. And I'm going to give you a bit more of a tour today of the exterior and show you a bit more what the town is like. Okay, one little tip, there's no bank in Hay-On-Wye anymore. I think there's probably an ATM still somewhere. There's no ATM here until the 90s, I seem to remember. In which case, remember to bring money for the car park. Now, I'm selling books at the cinema bookshop today, where they've known me for years, so I don't need to pay for car parking. Do bring money though for the toilets. It's 30p at a time. They've now got a card machine installed though, which is handy. And this is where I often sell things. I often sell things to Derek Addyman at Addyman Books as well. I say often, it's usually once a year, once every 2 years. And here's the cinema bookshop. So as I said last time, the town has changed a lot over the years. Changed a lot since the festival started in the early 90s. It was at its peak before that. Now you won't so much walk in and get, you know, a £40 first edition for £5. That's not going to happen anymore. It's a nice quiet day today, which is great. So last time I came it was market day and that was really busy. There are far fewer bookshops in Hay than there used to be, which is a shame. There's a lot more cheap boutiques, expensive coffee shops. So you do have to hunt the bookshops down a lot more now, but it's still a very pleasant day out, you know, a bibliophile or not. But look at this little window display. There we go. So wandering around the main street, still markets itself as the town of books, the world's first book town. As I say, it's nowhere near as booky as it was. So as you see, we're wandering along here. I've been filming for a minute now, and we haven't come across the bookshop yet. This one coming up here, the building that stands out. It's one of Derek Adderman's outlets. Some children's material. Look at this very, very nice display of new naturalist hardcovers there. Very collectible, expensive, very beautiful as well. Nice penguin window there. My friend Jules Burt would love that, though his penguin collection must be pretty much nearly complete now. When I come to Hay now, I try and focus almost exclusively on A format paperback SF because I've got so much and I'm usually not here for very long, few hours max. Let's see what's happening at the castle. A lot of work going on here. Hay-On-Wye booksellers, I usually drop in here. I have had some good scores here over the years. The market square is reassuringly empty today, which is good. I actually went in Hay-On-Wye booksellers at the very end of my sort of session in Hay, and I'll just show you the 4 things I picked up there. Last time it was terrible, and it wasn't much better this time, but I did manage to get some good stuff which wasn't there last time. And somebody asked about how I clean books. Now, if you look at my friend Jules Burt's channel, Hey Jules, you'll see hours and hours of cleaning videos, which some people find really relaxing. They drive the video with her mad. She thinks it's boring, probably because she does lots of cleaning around the house and I don't do very much. Shocking admission there. But I just sort of show you the techniques which I use, and they're pretty much the same as Jules is really. And I guess we write them independently, but it's nothing special. Your first tool should be a toothbrush, clean, unused, new. You know, what you'll find with an old book that's probably been on shelves for years and years and years, give it a little brush along the text block like that. And sometimes you can get, you know, you won't see a lot of visible difference, but what you'll notice, you probably won't capture on cameras, you'll sometimes get inordinate amounts of dust coming off, and you don't know where these things have been, you know, and especially if they've been in the basement of a dusty bookshop, you know, it's very interesting because, you know, dust is always with us, as it's mostly human skin, of course, but in a bookshops are very dry environments and they tend to get a lot of dust. So you do that, and, you know, sometimes you see veritable clouds coming. You probably won't with these, I don't think, and I say they're probably not visible on camera, but when you do see them, boy, you know, it's quite shocking. So the other thing you can do, of course, is that's just a basic. You'll never get the text box clean. It can't be done. You know, it is what it is. It's sort of paper, which is generally not acid free if you're buying stuff from the 60s and 70s and what have you. So what you can do though to get a bit of a better shine on the books, and sometimes they accrue an amazing amount of dirt. I mean, the standard thing is to use furniture polish. Now, I don't have furniture polish at the moment. Because we don't have a lot of wood furnishing in our house that requires a sort of polish, to be honest. So I've run out. I must get some. But what I've experimented with, and it's had no negative effects, though I wouldn't recommend doing this if you can get furniture polish. I've just found no ill effects on books which I have. Is if you take a little bit of hand sanitizer, not the stuff which has got anything sort of smelly in it, anything, you know, with some sort of mint or what have you, and give it a rub. I've probably put too much on there. Try not to get it on the text block, and just give it a wipe over. And you're seeing what I've got here is a Perry Rhodan book. I never thought the day would come when I'd buy a Perry Rhodan book, because they used to drive me mad in the 70s and 80s when I was looking for second-hand SF. And when I, you know, before I had a job and when I was in school and didn't have lots of money to spend. Not that I had lots of money to spend as I started working, but there you go. Because they were just everywhere. But this is unusual. This is the first ever Perry Rhodan book by K.H. Shear and Kurt Marcus. There's a huge series of these. It's ran to hundreds of volumes. And I don't think I'd ever seen this first one. Not that I'd ever looked, but I do believe it's quite uncommon. There's different livery to the others. It's published by Futura. That looks like a Chris Foss. I don't think there's any question about that being a Chris Foss jacket, really. And very, very nice. And we'll just have a quick look at that. And it dates from, let's see, 1st first published in 1974. Ace initially published it in 1969. I'm not quite sure what the chronology is before that, because of course they're German, so maybe a bit earlier. So that's two things you can do. Okay, so that little scrub fest aside, what else did I get at Hay-On-Wye Books? I mean, it's in Hay-On-Wye. It sells books. What an imaginative name. Well, as I said, it wasn't too bad. So I'm just going to show you the detail of what I got there. I'm just getting a price out of this one here. And I don't normally go for upgrading very much because that way lies madness. I'll only upgrade if I've bought a book long in the past which has been in a real state because it was hard to get, and it's probably from the days before the internet. When you buy things you have to see them, you couldn't afford to be choosy, and this is one of them. So for £2 I got this lovely copy of The Electric Crocodile by D.G. Compton in Arrow. This dates back to the 70s. I think this novel came out about 72. Let's have a look. 1973, published by Hodder in 1970. And what I love about this is it shows you inside on the colophon, the printed history on, which is the rear of the full title page, shows you a little bull there, which is the imprint of Hutchinson, which is the parent company of Arrow. And lovely. I love stuff like that. Sad, I know. But yeah, this is great stuff. Now, if you've not read D.G. Compton, he's one of the great English moralists of science fiction. Somebody also wrote crime novels as well. He's still around. He's very old. He must be about 90 by now. And this is just fantastic stuff. And his work is all about the moral implications of science and its effect on humanity, which really is what good SF is about. And very elegant writing and great stuff. And this is a beautiful copy. My old one was a total mess. It had a broken spine, what have you. And this one is pretty much as new. And it's not too sort of faded on the or toned on the text block either, which is great. So it's a really great one. So I'm going to reread that at some point, because it's been many years. Compton's one of those authors I try and buy everything I can find. I think there's only one of his S&F novels I don't have, and that's a book called A Usual Lunacy, which I must pick that up, and I think that was only published in the States by Borgo Press, I think. Quite uncommon. His final SF novel, Back of Town Blues, was really more of a straight crime novel. It was the third in a sequence of near-future crime novels, and I wasn't so keen on that. So I don't actually have that, so I should probably pick that up at some point as well. So that was a nice one. As I seem to be buying some Gordon R. Dixon these days, I'm trying to get a nice collection of the Dorsey books together, the Sphere ones, which I used to sell in the late 80s, which I'm very nostalgic about. But I bought some other ones. I like this rather nice corky of The Alien Way. I couldn't resist the sort of lurid colours of the jacket there, and it's a beautiful nick. And as you see, unbroken spine, fairly clean text block, and that's very much my jam. You know, it has to be with an unbroken spine and as pristine as possible. So this was £2 as well. Something that I've been thinking about again for a while, Cold War in a Country Garden by Lindsay Gutteridge, which is Panther. I would say this is very late 60s, early 70s. Let's have a look. It's 73, first published by Cape in 71. I'm a big Jonathan Cape fan, as you probably know. This is one of a trilogy. One of them is called Fratricide is a Gas, which is one of the best titles ever. It's a very hippie title, you know, very late 60s, early 70s, Mick Farren type title. And it's sort of a bit like The Incredible Shrinking Man, really, versus The Lost World. And I've not read these, and I may get the others in this series. I'll probably just go with this one, because I think it's the first one. They had two copies of this. They had one in a different livery, different publisher, but this is the one I liked. And this, again, that looks like a Foss to me. I'm not entirely certain it is. I'm sure somebody else will know off the top of their heads. So that's what I got at Hay-On-Wye Booksellers. I'm going to head to Richard Booth's now, because that's where the best sort of place for me to try and score some SF. Usually the cheapest, the largest range. There's some good quality stuff. Adiman has some great stuff, but he's a bit more expensive. Just down here used to be the bookshop on the pavement, which is sadly no longer there. I think my friend Clay used to work here. That's the Harrison and Pope building. That's the place where, in that very window one day in the 90s, they had absolutely loads and loads of Jonathan Cape firsts. They were file copies from the 70s. I got a lot of my ballads there. Absolutely fantastic day for scores. Okay, let's move on. So now you've actually got to hunt the bookshops down. It used to be that you trip over them. Now there are far, far fewer. Yeah, we're going to check out Richard Booth. Off we go, we'll see what we can find. Hardcover SF. Crime fiction. Trouble is now they do lots of new books as well, and I don't really like a bookshop that does both. I like it one way or the other, and they've got their William Gibson there with their crime. Very cool. Here's the SF. This is new SF. Got what I want to look at. Is the old stuff. Clifford D. Simak is somebody I said I have neglected, I've not read much, I should read more. And you know, when I see a book with a mastodon on the cover called Mastodonia, in Del Rey, with a Del Rey sort of Vertigo type swirl there. It's like the Vertigo swirl on the Vertigo Psychedelic Records label. You know, you just can't resist it. And, you know, I love anything with Ice Age mammals on the cover. But it doesn't mean I'll buy it. Like if it's by S.M. Baxter, for example, I won't. But because it's by Simak, and it's in quite nice nick. It's got a bit of a chip at the top there, which I don't like, and a chip there. But, you know, this is yet to have a clean up. But this was $2.75. Reflecting its relatively uncommon sort of status. I have looked at hardcovers of this, it's quite pricey, and it was a science fiction book club selection. How exciting. And this is Communipath Worlds by Suzette Hayden Elgin. I only recently acquired a copy of this, and I got it from a dealer for about £6 online. And the last time I went to Hay, if you look at the other video, I found this then, it was in much better nick. The other one's got a leaning spine and it's sort of broken, and oh god. But I'd never seen it before, and I decided that I was going to give Suzette another go. And I'm actually reading the fourth of this series at the moment, and I'm just fiddling here with a price sticker on the back. And there are 5 of them, and they're about a character called Coyote Jones. And Coyote Jones is an agent of the Trigalactic Intelligence Service, and he has a disability in his future world, and the books are set around 3030, and they refer to the Encyclopedia Galactica, which of course is a foundation thing from Asimov. And I haven't really thought about whether they're supposed to be set in the Asimov universe, because there is a federation, but I think really it's just sort of like a bit of an in-joke that Suzette was doing that. And she was born in 1936. I'm just gingerly peeling a sticker off. And she was I think she's still around. She was a linguist. She became an emeritus professor eventually, which kind of means you have an honorary title, and you know, you get to do what you like, which is fantastic. And she wrote these books. I think her first piece of fiction was a short story, which is actually in here, and it's entitled For the Sake of Grace, and it's used in here because this is an omnibus of 3 novels. It's used in here as the prologue of the 3rd one, which is called At the 7th Level, which is a door book. And Communipath Worlds, the basic idea, Coyote Jones has a disability, and he's this secret agent. And I don't really want to tell you his disability is. You know, when you sort of read Fantastic Four, Doom Patrol, X-Men, you know, and they're supposedly tortured by this ability they have. Well, it's a bit like that, but slightly different. And Suzette Hayden Elgin, broadly speaking, a feminist SF writer, quite muscular. I'm going to talk about her a bit more because I say I've just been reading the 4th one in the series. There are 5 altogether. There are 3 in here. If you see it, pick it up because it's good fun. The first 2 were published by Ace. Obviously, Donald Wilhelm was still there because they date about 70-71. And then the 3rd one at the 7th level was published by Door. Richard C. Meredith had a couple of books in Venture SF, a Hamlin little imprint that happened in the late sort of 80s, which was sort of like all action, good solid pulp SF, no sort of, you know, serious new wave stuff, no fantasy, no boredom, I think he used to say on them. And I kind of looked down on them at the time, but I've got them now because, you know, I'm quite in that revisionist mode really. But I think I do want to read a bit of the really traditional stuff as well, you know, because I was sort of like a new wave punk, you know. This is a Soldier of Fortune story, and I think his others were Run Come See Jerusalem, is that one of them? We All Died at Breakaway Station is the one I've read, which is quite sort of bleak and things. And this is from 73, and very, very good. So that's kind of military SF with a very bleak edge. The Irish science fiction writer, I saw him at the Worldcon years ago, and he seemed very, very nice. And this is a singleton from him in Orbit. It's in beautiful condition, absolutely gorgeous. I say all these are all like £2 to £2.75 max, mostly £2, £2.50. And this is a first contact novel. He's mostly known for his Sector General novels, which are fix-ups of short stories which are about like a hospital ship and doctors who treat aliens from all over, you know, the universe, and it's all about medical conundrums and alien morphology and stuff, and they're very entertaining. So, but I do feel I've neglected him, so I'm going to read that because it'd be good to see a non-Sector General work from James. I do want to get a nice set of Dorsai, but I'm just really sort of looking at some of the ones I used to sell from Sphere in the 80s, which I've got very fond memories of. Chris Foss cover again, Ancient My Enemy, great title. Not too bad on the spine, it's a little faded, they like sort of very bright yellow in the new. And I thought I'd pick that up because these are around. This one is, you know, got a decent spine. And Gordon R. Dixon is regarded as sort of the right-wing conservative sort of end of things. And again, he's somebody I feel I've neglected. Did a lot of collaborations with Poul Anderson, and I am hoping to buy some of those as well. So they're very, very beautiful. You can't really argue with a Foss cover for £2, can you really? Then somebody else, I've got a lovely little Ace paperback here. Look at that, thin, fleet, economical, entertaining, and it's John Brunner's The Dramaturges of Yan, which, you know, has got to be one of the best titles of any science fiction novel ever. And I've never got around to reading it. I've always thought the title's fantastic. Me and my mate, Dr. Tim Coombs, hello Doctor, who appears occasionally as an off-camera voice in, you know, interviews with Tom Toner and things like that. He, big SF fan, we've known each other for many years, and we always joke about the Dramaturges of Yan and how our Brunner collections are too small when it comes to this stuff, and that's Ace, so it's nice. This is a common book, there's lots of the UK edition about it. This is the nicest copy I've seen, I think, probably ever, so it had to be done. So there you go, John, Dramaturges of Yan. Then we have a couple of doors, because of course everybody has a door fetish these days. I blame Jules Bird, I blame all these people, you know, who just buying all this stuff. And the reality about door is this, is that, you know, there are an awful lot of books. A lot of them are not very good. A lot of them are very routine. Don Wollheim, he carried over his, you know, thing from Ace, routine adventure novels, reliance on series very often. But, you know, there were some sort of jewels in the rough. And somebody I've never read is James H. Schmitz. And he's a name which pops up now and again. And this is The Lion Game. And what a cover, look at that. And this is a Telsie Ambadon novel. And that's Telsie on the cover. And she's the heroine. She was just a college girl, but she's one of the most valuable assets of the human colonized worlds. Because of her sharp mind and warm personality, she possessed most unusual mutant accumulation talents. So there you go. So she's a mutant, and she's got sort of like a superhero type costume on there, hasn't she? And you can't resist that. This isn't the first one, but they're usually fairly routine. It was a door, and I thought I'd pick it up because it's got such a lovely jacket. The spine, sadly, is a bit faded. You know, it's nice when they're really yellow, but you know, it is what it is. And for a couple of quid, you can't really go wrong. So it had to be done. And finally, in my Richard Booth haul, I got another door by Edward Llywelyn. That's the proper way you say Llywelyn. It's not Llewellyn, it's Llywelyn. That's the Welsh way. It's a Welsh name. And the Douglas Convolution, Unravelling the Knots of Time. Look at that. Looks more like a sort of adventure novel by Desmond Bagley or something, doesn't it? You know, from the 70s, early 80s. But it's the sort of thing that I probably wouldn't bother to seek it online and you know, just an order especially. But because it's it was there, and it's about a knot in time, and this will be pretty routine, I think. I've got other stuff by him which is quite entertaining, but relatively straightforward. So I decided to get that. So that was Richard Booth. Moving on. Okay, well that was Richard Booth. I've got a few things in there. I'm going to do Addy Man books next. It's pretty thin pickings, even compared to last time. Today, Addy Man's have Murder and Mayhem open. I'm not really looking for crime today. I'm trying to stick to SF, but that's to give you a shot. And they usually have lots of good second-hand crime in there. Well, if you're a Terry Pratchett fan, which I'm glad that I'm not, Addy Man's have got a lot at the moment, a really nice collection. This is just some of them in the window. They've got some of the much scarcer ones, really, really beautiful condition. They've actually got a nice Moorcock collection at the moment, including one I haven't got in hardcover, Chinese Agent. It's £100, which is sort of beyond really my sort of threshold at the moment, really, and then generally And it's you know, I'm not really buying Moorcock anymore. I've read the book many times, but yeah, there you go. There's a Ray Bradbury I think I might pick up today. He had last time. It's £12, which is quite a lot for an A format paperback. He's got it on AB, or he had it on AB because I've got it now, haha. And you know, it was there with his sort of collectible SF, and there's a little description in here. Look at that, and it says, Ray Bradbury, The Silver Locust, Panther Books 1977, first edition, thus. Now what does that mean, first thus? What it means is this is the first time that Panther did this book with this title, and of course The Silver Locust is the original title of the Martian Chronicles. Now I have this with this cover in paperback, same cover design, except it sells the Martian Chronicles. I also have it in hardcover in a demi format, and it says the Martian Chronicles. Now I'm convinced that there was a hardcover of this edition with the Silver Locust on, because I'm sure my friend Phil back in Wales used to have it. And you see, he says first thus, but so maybe my memory's flawed, but you know, I'm not so certain. It's so hard to check these things. So covers are slightly shelf worn, pages are browned, overall a nice tight copy, £12. So I decided, because I love this book, I actually prefer this to Fahrenheit 451. Fahrenheit 451 is probably more original. It's very lyrical and, you know, and pastoral, and you know they're not very scientific, but they are SF, you know, and I love this. It's beautiful. And if you've never read this and you've read 451, it is a fix-up. It's short stories in the same setting, different characters put together. And I think its overall power is just magnificent. And it's probably my favourite Bradbury after Dandelion Wine, which is a mainstream novel, a coming-of-age novel, which is really beautiful. And I can't say enough good about this. So I'm really pleased to have that, because it's very, very uncommon with the Silver Locust on the cover. Maybe he already had one printing. Who can say? The Two Timers. And it is a fairly minor one. It's not one of his sort of major books. I think it was his second or third novel. Again, I'm gingerly peeling a sticker off the rear, which has been on there for a million years. And I got this because beautiful condition. It's pan. It's not the lozenge. It's before the lozenge. It's not leaning. It's quite clean. It's really, really nice. And this is the cover I remember. And it's a sort of time paradox, alternate worlds thing, where, you know, and it's a love story, so there's like a sort of love triangle or quadrangle maybe across two alternate time streams where lovers have become, you know, end up with different people and what have you. And it's very short and fleet and good, and it does the romantic thing quite well from what I recall. I need to reread it because it's been a long time. I do have another edition with it with not such a nice cover, so I really love Pan, so that's great. So it's really nice to have that. I'm not really a Shaw completist. I've read most of his books. I lose interest quite a bit when we get the 80s. There's a few sort of ones which don't sort of quite come off, like I was never that fussed on Fire Pattern. I didn't like the expanded revision of Ground Zero Man, which I thought was a great title, into the Peace Machine. I thought, what's the point for the Peace Machine? Such a dull title. Ground Zero Man's a very cool title. This is one I haven't read, Dagger of the Mind. It's Pan again. It's pre-lozenge, so it's sort of early 70s, which I don't remember having read it. And, you know, the fact is that Shaw is one of the great neglected British writers, you know, from Northern Ireland. He was a lovely man in person, very witty. I was a huge fan of his work in my teens. And, you know, if you've not read A Wreath of Stars, Other Days, Other Eyes, and the comic SF novel Who Goes Here, you know, quite frankly, you know, get hold of them. And the reason you don't find them, because a friend of mine wanted to reissue them, is that reportedly, allegedly, Shaw is dead, sadly, his partner, you know, wanted an absurd amount of money, or that's what I heard. I don't know if that's true. Maybe publishers are being a bit mean, what have you, so she wouldn't have the rights. I think you can get them with Gateway now, but it's not the same as them actually being in print. Luckily, you can get quite a lot of them secondhand without too much difficulty. So that's Bob Shaw, Dagger of the Mind. Great merging of literary and hard SF in a manner that only the British can do, and he was one of the few practitioners who managed to pull those two things together really, really effectively. So what else did I get? Well, as I said, Gordon R. Dixon kick these days, and I'm trying to buy the Sphere ones, which I remember, as I said. This is Naked to the Stars. Love that title. Slightly saucy, some of you might think, but you know, the old spaceship cover, you can't go wrong. and one which has always tickled me because the title is so generically skiffy. You know, it's I'm not going to say sci-fi because we don't say sci-fi on this channel. We're going to say skiffy instead, and that's Mission to Universe, not Mission to the Universe, but Mission to Universe. And look at that spaceship, and what's going on there? And you know, it's Foss, so you know he can do what he likes, and you know, there's no inertia in space. You know, it is what it is. So I've been meaning to get one of those for a while. They're usually in a state. This one's really got nice sort of yellow spine, which isn't too faded. Marvelous. None of these are leaning, you know, I don't go for that stuff. So really pleased with that as well. And you know, that was all of like £2, so you can't really argue with that. Another upgrade was a book I reread recently for the first time in years and years and years, and that's John Brunner's Times Without Number, which is an alternate history novel, and it's some of the sort of like Elizabethan ones where Catholicism holds sway, and it's about the Inquisition, Times Without Number, and the Spanish Inquisitors and the whole Spanish Catholic Empire in this have got time travel, which is quite interesting. And I reread it because it was reissued recently as the Society of Time by British Library, and it's more minor than I remembered, but I'd had a copy of this for years, and I mean literally going back to the 80s with a ruined spine, and I used to, every time I looked at it, I used to think, should I get rid of that? But I was always quite fond of it as a book and knew I'd go back to it. So again, a couple of quid, fantastic. And these are reportedly Amazons, except they're not really Amazons, because if they were Amazons they'd have one arm and be bare-breasted, but there's one point they come out of the abyss of time and invade some gathering and start killing people. So you know, it's enjoyable hokum. But I mean, one of Brunner's sort of more original sort of non-routine space opera works, you know. So so that's one to watch out for if you like alternate history. Very pleased with that, in good nick. Jack Vance I've talked about a lot as I started the channel, largely because I've been trying to pick up and complete my collection, and one that I've sort of been holding back from is The Last Castle, and this one's got a sticker that's pulled off there. Quite an uncommon book. This was only a few quid. Jack Vance, each time I go to second-hand books, there are fewer and fewer his works. They're always in a complete state. The prices are going up online, so if you've got Jack Vance books in good nick, hang on to them, because if you let them go, you're not going to get them again as cheap. And I've been both paperbacks and hardcovers. And this one, Hugo and Nebula Awards for Best Novella. And when was that? I think it was the late 60s. Let's have a quick look. Let's see. 1966 Galaxy Publishing Corp. So I guess it was in Galaxy, and this is an Ace edition. And there you go. And it's nice and brief, and Vance's rather purple sort of prose. I like it. You read it really more for the prose and the plotting or what have you. Tends to stick to the same motifs and the same sort of structures. So you know, this is going to be great because it's just over 100 pages. There's a lot to be said for short forms, and SF at its best is often in short forms. Snappy. Great stuff. Poul Anderson, as you know, I've been collecting Poul Anderson as well. I'm collecting a lot more than I'm reading. Again, it's partly nostalgia for selling the covers. And I've been trying to get books in the Dominic Flandry series, which is quite a few of them. And this is Flandry of Terror in Coronet, Hodder and Stoughton. And they do another one as well in this livery, or they did. And I must pick that up, but I'm trying to think what the original title of this is, because they changed the titles and stuff, but I can't recall. First published in 1965 by Chilton Books Philadelphia, whoever they were, and this is from 1976. Hang on, I can see on the colophon it does tell me a little bit more. Some of these go back to 1959. Mayday Orbit, that was it. Earthman Go Home. You know, they've had issues with using these story titles as talent, but this is basically bringing those together. Flandry of Terror, and you know, what a cover. They don't make them like that anymore. I'm not quite sure what I think of that. It's either terribly brilliant or brilliantly terrible. It's one of the two. Poul Anderson, I am looking for a hardcover UK first of People of the Wind. This is a very common book. You see it everywhere. It's usually in a state. I've been looking for one in good nick. So I remember selling this, and I never used to pay much attention to it at the time. I love his fantasy novel, The Broken Sword, which I'm very passionate about, and it's his fantasy novels I really cleave to. But I am going to try and get a hardcover of that, but they're very, very uncommon indeed. So that was my thing at Derek Adamant, and we had a quick chat, Derek and I, and gave me this wonderful Adiman Mugs book, which you get if you pay over 30 quid, you get one anyway. It looks a bit like a Harry Potter mug from a distance, which is a bit scary, but you know, it's got bookcases, and it's got a zebra, not a zebra, a zebra. It's like Hangover again. A leopard rug there and that, and they do them in different colours. So if you're in there and you spend 30 quid, demand your free mug, and they'll gladly give you one. So what happened next? Okay, this is some of the stuff I've got from Addyman and Richard Booth's. I'm going to leave it nice and neat here in the boot now in its bags, and then I'm going to have a quick look in the cinema bookshop, and then I've got to go and meet the video widow for something to eat. So even though I sold books at the cinema bookshop, I don't really always do it first. I tend to do Booth, then Addyman, then the cinema bookshop, and then the others, because I find that's usually you get the sort of priority sort of thing there. That's the order of priority I go for. I go for sort of range and cheapness first, then Addyman slightly more expensive and a bit more quality, and then the others just picking up what they've got. And I'm really pleased with this. I don't really buy a lot of hardcovers in Hay anymore, because say you can't pick up a 40 quid book at £5 anymore like you used to, and a lot of them in absolute state. But this is Threshold by Ursula Le Guin, and absolutely beautiful, and in Gollancz Fantasy, as it says there. Check that out. And lovely. I used to have a copy of this once, but it was in a real state. It was all crimped and what have you, and this is absolutely gorgeous. It's really shiny and clean. It was £7. It's got a price clip DJ. Oh no, it's really funny actually. The price clip DJ, really, a lot of people get really put off by that. I don't care if the DJ is price clipped, as long as the rest of it is pristine. Usually you'll find that you've got these crimped edges and stuff, and this is lovely. So I can live with that for 7 quid. And this dates to 1980. With Le Guin, I tend to jump off about that point because she gets a bit more woo-woo and new agey. I do like some of the later books. Her writing seemed to grow more diffuse, and Norman Spinrad accused her of eco-fascism at one point. Go for it, Norm. And they're not as sharp and astringent and flavoursome. When you read the early ones, things like Racannon's World and Left Hand to Darkness, Dispossessed, they've got a sort of vinegary texture to them occasionally to balance out the sort of more sort of new agey, feminine, gentle, wise stuff, and I think that was necessary. And so this, I'm really pleased with that. It's absolutely beautiful, really nice. So that was one of the scores of the day. There was another great one to come up though, well, I'll talk to you about that when I get to it. So yeah, cinema bookshop, and I got one of their bookmarks to give away, which is a picture of the shop, and in Booth they gave me a Hay Festival bookmark. Don't go during the festival. It's on the 26th of May to the 5th of June this year, and it says this in Welsh on there. Don't go to the festival. Literary festivals mostly are full of celebrities who've written books. They're not writers, they're people who would get a deal because they're a celebrity, so they're easy for them to get publicity. They'll be on the TV, the radio, people know who they are, so they sell. These people are not writers. You get the occasional one who is, because some of them have come from journalism, they can write very well, but mostly that's what you get. You don't get a lot of real literary figures, and things like SF don't get much of a look in because it's not literary enough, of course, is it? That would be terrible in Britain to admit that something from the gutter could ever be literary. How shocking. So don't go in those dates. Go before, because a lot of the good stuff will disappear during it, and go about at the end of the summer or something's a good time to go. So that's coming up there. And I think Booth's, this Booth's little bookmark, this one. I have a bit of a bookmark nut at the moment. I've got some bookmarks going 30 years. It's ridiculous, but you do need your bookmarks, especially if you read 6 or 7 books at once, which I try not to do. I've got a couple of little things. This is a Robert Silverberg in Hamlin. I've got a fondness for Hamlin SF because it's usually sort of fairly minor stuff, and this is still in like a little bag, so I'm going to pull it off. And this is an early Silverberg, Silent Invaders, which I don't have. I've seen it many times. It's probably routine from the early days, but this is lovely and shiny. It's been looked after, and it's brief and blind. So that'll sort of go in my early Bobs. I do cleave to Bob in the sort of late 60s to mid 70s period where he's at his greatest. Do watch my Robert Silverberg A format video. There's a lot more Bob Silverberg to come because he's great. But yeah, pleased with that. That was nice. That was about, how much was that? £3. Can't argue with that really. And somebody who, again, I've read a fair bit, but I want to read some more because I was looking at the BBC Archive channel on YouTube, and there's excerpts from a programme there about what SF is, and it's got some guests on there, and Douglas Adams is on there, so I guess it dates about 77. Ian Watson is on there, and Peter Nichols of the SF Encyclopedia, God rest his soul, you know, one of my idols. I do, you know, it's one thing I really love is good, solid, critical writing about SF, and Peter Nichols as editor of the SF Encyclopedia is just, you know, one of my absolute idols, and he's on there, sadly no longer with us, great Australian critic. And Harry Harrison made some very trenchant comments on there about metaphysics and how, you know, what was important was physics, not metaphysics, and he sort of clearly seemed to have a clear idea of the limits of SF and the difference between SF and fantasy, and I want to talk about that a bit more in another video when I talk about definitions of SF and fantasy. So I thought, Harry, I need to read more of your stuff. I've read a fair bit, you know, Make Room, you know, Soylent Green's one of my favourite books. I read Stainless Steel Rat books many years ago. I didn't think a lot of them. I don't think they're that good, quite honestly. I don't think they're that funny at all. This one's about matter transformation. I've always loved this cover. I tend to look at it a lot in my Chris Foss book, and I think, why haven't I got that? It's so beautiful. So I decided to pick that up. Not that uncommon, but, you know, decent nick, and it was a couple of quid. So, you know, you can't argue with that. So that was Cinema Bookshop. One shop I didn't feature in the video is the Book Centre, which is down by the clock tower, and me and the video widow were down there, and we had a nice little takeaway pizza there last time because it was market day. It was the best thing about the market day, was you could have a tiny takeaway pizza. You pay the earth for it, but it was lovely. And the Book Centre has got about sort of like 6 or 7 different booksellers in it. They each have their own little corner, and there's somebody on the counter and what have you. And I nipped in there, and I hadn't good scores in there for years, but one more upgrade. I'm a huge fan of Thomas M. Dish, particularly the early works, and Camp Concentration's amazing novel. I've had it for years and years and years in a Panther which predates this. This is a Granada, which I would say is from early 80s, 77, late 70s, early 80s. And, you know, this is a great book, one of the solid new wave SF classics. If you read just one Thomas M. Dish book, I think you should probably read this one. I would say it's the one. The Genocides is great as an entry. This is a really important one. 334 is really good. A lot of the stories are really great. I don't want to talk too much about Tom Dish today, because at some point I'm going to do a video just about his work, because I think he was fabulous. Very, very sad. He was gay, of course. He was never really accepted by the sort of more conservative elements in American SF writing, because he was an iconoclast. He never won any major awards until later in his life. And, you know, and you do wonder if there was a bit of homophobia and stuff. He was very witty and urbane, and but, you know, a man who really loved SF, but he could write it really well. He should have had an amazing career as a mainstream novelist, but he stuck with us in SF, and, you know, we should be grateful for that. He lived in a rent-controlled apartment in New York, and his partner died, and he couldn't afford to live anymore. He turned a gun on himself and shot himself, which is just shocking, you know. But that's Tom Dish for you, you know, a bit like Barry Milesburg, you know, it's a sort of fairly tragic sort of thing going on. Great shame, but fantastic book. So I'm glad to upgrade that, because my old Panther one, I much prefer. I have a real Granada Grafton thing, as people who watch the channel. If you watch my Asimov Granada and Grafton thing, you then see my deep love of the imprint coming out, you know. So that's something. I picked up this very cheap, and this is a late Dorsey book by Gordon R. Dixon, Lost Dorsey. And even though I was only really meaning to go for the initial trilogy, I couldn't resist this. It's Ace. It's got some rubbing in parts. It's a chip at the bottom of the spine there. It was a couple of quid, first mass market edition. It's got illustrations. Why does it need illustrations? Look at that. You know, come on. It's not for kids, science fiction. But I couldn't resist that cover. It's so cheesy. What can you say? Marvelous, isn't it? I just had it. I thought, if I don't get this, I'll never see it in this livery again. So I got it. So what? Sue me. And then another absolute score, and I really wasn't expecting much, and this was £10, and this is Richard Cowper's Worlds Apart. Lovely, absolutely superb. Somebody has stuck a little yellow sticker on there, but I can live with that. I'm not going to try and take that off. It's pretty much very fine to near mint. It doesn't have a price clip DJ. It was £10. It's a first edition. and absolutely fantastic. I haven't read this one. I call him Richard Cowper. It's Richard Cooper, but I call him Cowper just so we all know we're talking about 1974. So it's not that late actually. So the fact it's in this condition is remarkable, and maybe they had some more and they flogged them all. Curses. But yeah, literary writer Colin Middleton Murray. You know, his dad was a sort of big literary critic, you know, friendly with people like Lawrence and Huxley, hang out with Catherine Mansfield, what have you. And, you know, really good, solid British literary SF writer. Great stuff. And somebody I've been meaning to return to, because I've read loads and loads of them, and I let some of them go, and I should have kept them. Clone is probably his most famous book. His best book is probably The Twilight of Briareus, which Christopher Priest told me off for in the introduction to my book 100 Must-Read Science Fiction Novels, so not including it. And yeah, I probably should have, Chris, but you know, and maybe you'll forgive me one day. And it is a fantastic book, so there you go. But yeah, I was really pleased with that, and not a price clip DJ in sight. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that, and I was asked a question on the channel by Bob, hey Bob, who was asking about the chronology of the VALIS series, and I thought rather than stick it in the comments, I'd sort of put it on the end of this this video, and so I got out my Galactic Central bibliographies of Philip K. Dick, and this is the one, which is volume 18. I've had these. I think I got these in the late 80s, early 90s. I don't even get them anymore, and I prefer to go to printed sources, and these are pretty good actually. As you see, they're just little paper chapbooks, and there's one about his non-fiction, huge, and there's one about his fiction. It's by Phil Stevenson Payne and Gordon Benson Jr. Well done, guys. And this was the 3rd revised edition, and I just wanted to check the chronology of those. So looking at them, of course, we know that VALIS you know, was pretty much the first, and alternate titles of VALIS, of course, To Scare the Dead and Zebra. And it looks like the first edition was a Berkeley paperback back in February 1981. The first hardcover edition, of course, was the Kerosene one. I've got one of those. I've got a signed one, a lettered state. So that was February 81. Then looking at, I think the Divine Invasion is technically the second one of the trilogy, because it's a thematic trilogy. Now, the Divine Invasion was published in hardcover by Timescape. That's the first edition in June 81, and the alternate title, VALIS Regained. So the Divine Invasion was published after VALIS. And I think then we cleave to the mainstream novel, The Transmigration of Timothy Archer, as the third in the trilogy. And yeah, that was published by Timescape in April 1982. So it is what I thought. It was VALIS, The Divine Invasion, and Transmigration of Timothy Archer. Of course, Dick died, you know, in 81, and it's a great shame, because he was, you know, making great strides, and this sort of stuff was really happening for him then. His fascination with the whole religious thing was there. And of course, there's the alternate version of VALIS, which is called Radio Free Albemarle, which I think is a much better book. And looking at Radio Free Albemarle in this bibliography, and I just wanted to do this way because, you know, I want to get across the importance of good, solid reference books and printed reference work when you're learning about SF, because that's how I learned a lot. It gives you context. So Radio Free Albemarle, aka VALIS System A, published by Arbor House, was published in December 1985. I've got a 7-house hardcover. I think the Grafton paperback preceded it, because I'm sure I read that first. And that's my favourite version. So there you've got it. You've got the VALIS trilogy is VALIS, The Divine Invasion, Transmigration of Timothy Archer, and as a sidebar, you've got Radio Free Albemarle, the alternate, and in my view, the less ambitious but more successful version. And it's a very exciting book, Radio Free Albemarle. And there is a film of it, which has not been shown in the UK. I think maybe 1 or 2 art cinemas have shown it. You can get it on DVD. It took years and years to make on a tiny budget. Well worth a look. And, you know, we know there's going to be a film of Vulcan's Hammer. It's probably not going to be any good, you know, fingers crossed that it will be. But Spare thought for the actor Paul Giamatti, who has tried many times to raise money for a biopic of Dick's life, and he wants to play Philip K. Dick, and he's had pictures done of himself made up as PKD. Just think how interesting would that be? Married 5 times, 50 books, dead at 52. What a tragedy. Anyway, this is Outlaw Bookseller, signing out for now. See you soon with more SF.